We are on Daf Ches Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the top. Amar Mar. We're continuing with the brisa that we had brought. So we said Amar Mar Yachal al Shalosh Tumas Halal Yesar Mechaper. This is the brisa had said. Brisa, you said that we learn out from the pasuk by Sor Bifnim. Torah says that's how we learn out that the carbon oil of the case of Yediyas Atuma, where you bring the carbon oil of Yared, which is Yesh Yediyah Betchila Ve'em Ba Yediyah B'Seif, where eventually, when you'll have the Yediyah B'Seif, you'll bring the carbon oil of Yared. But prior to that, before there's the Yediyah B'Seif, before he finds out that he had become tummy when he went into the Mikdash, or when he ate Kaidish Betuma. At that point, the sor hanasa b'fnim is title of the oven. It suspends the oven from applying. So Dr. Gemara. The Brisa says, I would have thought that maybe Gilerai, Shvichas Daman, Avodah Zarah all have the lashon of Tumah used by them. So maybe that's what the pasuk is referring to. So the Gemara says, Mitumas v'loy kol tumas. Since it says, Make tumas b'nei Yisrael, it means from them, but from amongst the tumas, but not all the tumas. Some are included and some are excluded. And the Brisa continues, Ma'amatzinu shecholak hakasav. Ma'amatzinu shecholak hakasav b'chal kol hatumas b'tumas mikdash ukdasha. And just like we found that Legabi Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha, they were excluded, they're treated differently than all the other Tumas, which we're going to explain in what way Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha is distinct from Gilei Rai Shvichas Dam and Avodah Zarah. Avka Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha. So too, when the Torah says, just like it has a different din, Legabi something else, so too it's going to have a different din Legabi this, that it's going to be Mechuper. Different Rabbi Yehuda. The first Aktamar, my chalak. What is this distinction that the Brisa refers to that says just like the Isser of Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha is distinct Legabi something else, it's also going to be distinct Legabi getting the kapara from the par nasivnim. Aktamar the Ma'isi the Ba'il of Yared. The very obvious distinction that it's the one that you bring the oil of Yared for, like we said, when there's a when there's a Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha that was a Yediyah Betchila and a Yediyah B'Seif, you bring a carbon oil of Yared. There's necessarily no oil of Yared by any of the other proposed Tumas. Zak Gemara, Ema Avodah Zarah. So you're saying that Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha is distinct because it has a einish of oil of Yared. It brings an oil of Yared. Ema Avodah Zarah. Why don't I say Avodah Zarah? My chalak. What's the chalak of Avodah Zarah? Zok the Gemara, the Maisi Seira v'lei Kispa. That Avodah Zarah is separate from all other carbon chatas. You bring a carbon chatas if someone is Avodah Zarah b'shegig, but normally for a chatas you have a choice. You could bring either a young lamb or a young goat, a kid. But for Avodah Zarah, the Torah dictates that you have to bring a goat. You have to bring a female goat, a young goat. So that's how it's different than other chatayos. Amar Rav Kahana anan chalak lahachal karminim, v'hay chalak lahachmerhu. He says no, we're not looking for halukim that are chumras. We're trying to say which one the Torah, when it says it's mechaper on something, which one is it referring to? And which one gets a kapara? So getting a kapara is a kula. So you have to show me something that's different. That's a kula. So bring a carbon oil of Yared. A carbon oil of Yared means that you could bring, instead of a normal chatas, which is an animal, you could bring even birds or a mincha. That's a kula. So that would explain why it also gets the kula of being mechuper by the Sar Hanasa B'fnim. So bring a sira b'lei kisba is a chumrah. It's saying you can only bring this one and not something else, but it's not any better. So therefore, we don't have a valid chiluk why it should be avodah zarah. Now the Gemara says, "Emi yeledes." Let's say it's coming to mechaper and a yeledes has to bring a carbon after her after days of Tyra and Tumah. The chalak, and what is the difference of yeledes the ma'isa oila v'yared, that a yeledes also is included, that it brings an oila v'yared, meaning that a person brings I think it brings two birds. Should be right. It's not. It's not. So it depends. It's not the same. It's not part of our parsha of Oila v'Yared, but we call it Oila v'Yared in that she has some. She has some optionality of which carbon she could bring. She doesn't have to bring an animal. She could bring a bird in its place. So let's say that that's also going to be mechuper al yedei the sar nasa b'pnim. The Torah says l'chol chatasam, and this is not someone. It's this by sar nasa b'pnim. It says it should be brought for your chet, but l'chol tumasam, not for a tum. And this is someone. She's not bringing a carbon for an aver. She's bringing the carbon for a tumah. So tomorrow, Rav Shimon Yochai Dami Yoledis Nami Chaytasi. He holds that the reason why a woman brings a carbon at the end of her tumah by Yoledis is because of her. She probably said something she regretted b'shas the labor. So this is a carbon that's brought to be mechaper for what she said. Ma'ika l'meima. According to him, why would it be excluded from l'chol chatasam? This is also michatasam. Zakt Gemara, Rav Shimon l'tamei dam mekayme umuchra. Rav Shimon, as we're gonna get to him in a minute, but Rav Shimon in our brisa had said you don't have to come on to saying that the carbon that someone who's tamei tumas mikdash kedasha is going to be mechuper by the par nasa b'pnim because it's mecholak. He says it's mechach from the actual lashon of the pasuk. He learns it directly from the pasuk. So the Gemara ema mitzayra. Why don't we say? So Rav Shimon, this whole discussion is irrelevant. Ema mitzayra. Why don't we say that the kapara is going for a mitzayra, and a mitzayra has to bring a carbon. Again, this is a tumah. This is not a kapara. But according to Shmuel Bar Nachmani, that he says that there are different averis. There are 7 averis that a person does, and that's what brings a neg on him. So it is a kapara. So how is it? So it wouldn't be excluded from l'chol chatasam l'chol tumasam. So tomorrow Hassan begia dachapale. He says, I don't know how we know this, but he says that even according to Shmuel Nachmani, that he says that the nega comes for 7 different things. He says that the nega is the punishment for the avera. The carbon l'shtariyah b'kol, but the carbon is just for the tumah that comes along with it. Means he got the tumah, but now he's mechuper already for whatever it was he did, and now now he's tameh. So again, that would be excluded from the chol chatas and v'loy tumasam.
So by Yoledis, even if she didn't say anything wrong, she still has to bring a korban, right?
She probably thought it.
Oh, so we're done with kaf schools.
Yeah, that's the shita. The shita is that a woman she does something wrong. Yeah,
it's a very high bar, I have to say.
I mean, Rashi says pretty straight out what it is.
So Paul's asking, what if this particular woman didn't? So why does everyone have to bring a carbon?
I mean,
Yeah. You could ask a better question. What about an epidural? Okay.
Well, that's a kapora in itself. The shot.
And I've had the epidural. It's not so bad. The truth is, mine was pretty bad. It took them about 2 hours to do it, but that was because they were trying to do it right. It was absolutely miraculous. I had a epidural that lasted for a week.
No.
So, like when I had my surgery 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't feel a thing. I absolutely was 100% effective. There's no pain. So, fact the Gemara. The Amen Nazir, Tameh, a Nazir who became Tameh. So I have to admit, I don't really understand this, but the Gemara is saying when a Nazir becomes Tameh, he has to bring a carbon and then resume his Naziris. The Chalak, the Maisi Tayrim B'nei Yaina, that it's l'chara different than other carbon chatas that you bring birds as opposed to animals. So maybe that's what's mechaper. That's a tum. It's not a chait. Now I don't understand. I mean, why is this any different than someone who does anything b'shayik? The nazir is not allowed to be metama. If he does so, he's over on a lav. So why is it that when he make by mistake becomes tameh, he's not? It's not l'chol chatasam, unless I guess it means maybe someone who has a karv that died and he's mechuyev to be metama. So maybe that's what it's referring to. According to Belazar Kafa, who says a nazir is a chayta, the famous Belazar Kafa, who says that a person, the Rebbe Shalom put us on this world not to cause ourselves tsaras. So a person who takes upon himself to be a nazir is not doing the right thing. So he's also a chayta, so he should be excluded from the chol chatasam. So tomorrow. He holds like Rav Shimon, who says that again we're going to have to resort to saying that this is going according to the Man Amar. Says you don't learn it out from the fact that the reason why Thomas Mikdash Ukdashav is mechuper with the Sarah Pnimi is not because it's mecholak, but rather because it's evident from the pasuk itself. Now we're going to see what was it that Rav Shimon said. So we've answered the questions, and now we're going to see what Rav Shimon holds. Rav Shimon, who has this different reason for why Sar Nasabatnim is referring to Thomas Mikdash Ukdasha. Amar Ma, Rav Shimon I'm Kaimu Mochra. Harayim Mebechiba ala Kodesh mitumas shel Kodesh. The Torah says he should be mechaper ala Kodesh from his tumas. So it means it. So we darshan it to mean the tumas that come from Kodesh. What is the tumas of Kodesh? Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha. In fact, the Gemara Shaper Kamer Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon has a good limud. Why would Rabbi Yehuda try to learn it from a savara that it's mecholok, that Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha mecholok? Let's just say it straight from the pasuk. Yehuda Amalach Hahumi Bayalek Yehechad Avid Lefnayim Lefnim Hachi Navid Behechad. This is, he says that it's referring to something else. This is talking about the avodah of the soer hanase b'fnim, and there was part of the avodah was to bring in, if you remember back from Yuma, he would carry in the kli with the dam, and he would do zrikas by the aron, and then he would go outside and do 2 sets of zrikas opposite the heichel, in the heichel opposite the paraychas. So this is, he says, the chipar la kodesh, it's coming to tell you that he should be mechaper ala kodesh, meaning on the actual kadshe kadashim, by being zayrik the dam in the heichel opposite the paraychas, which is the kadshe kadashim. So ala, it means very literally, he's mechaper ala kodesh on the heichel, on the paraychas. or opposite the pareichas. So it's telling you just like he has to do the zrikas l'fnai v'l'fneim opposite the ar, and he also does them opposite the pareichas. Rav Shimon hahumi v'chein yaseh nafka. Rav Shimon learns it out. He says the Torah says the regular v'chipa al hakodesh b'tumas b'nei Yisrael p'sheim l'chol chatos sadin v'chein yaseh lo el moed asher chinitam b'seich tumasam. So Rav Shimon has a good taina. What do you need this mitumas? What do you have to say? V'chipa al hakodesh. It says v'chein yaseh. You should do the same outside as you did inside. Yehuda imay hi avamin and nesi par v'sarach lini v'nabed. He says if the Torah didn't say v'chipa al hakodesh that you should do be mechaber on the kodesh together, mitumas b'nei Yisrael m'shem lo. If it didn't say that, I would say when it says v'chein yaseh, it's saying you should bring an entire other soyer, a third soyer, in addition to the soyer hanaseh b'pnim and the soyer hanaseh b'chutz, a third soyer that you then azarek outside. That's why it says v'chipa al hakodesh, kamash malan, that you just take the dam and you mechaber with it. Rav Shimon v'chein yasel le'moed. Rav Shimon v'chein yasel le'moed minei mashma. He says Rav Shimon disagrees. He says no. When Torah says v'chein yaseh, I wouldn't have thought it's another carbon. It says v'chein yaseh, meaning we were just talking about zrikas. It's saying you do the same zrikas, not that you bring another carbon. So the Brisa continued. Amar ma. Yachal al kol tumas shebekodesh yesoyer zeh mechaper. We suggested, how do you know, now that we're saying it's talking about Yediyas HaTumah, Tumas Mikdash Ukdashav, maybe it's all the different Tumas. How do we know it's just the Tumah of someone who had a Yediyah B'tchila and not a Yediyah B'Seif? And the way Rashi had explained it before, and the way the Gemara is going to explain it in a minute, the suggestion is when there's a Yediyah B'tchila and the Yediyah B'Seif, maybe you should have a kapara from the Sar B'fnim. When there's a pesha from the pesha l'chol chatos, for the chatois, for what they do by pesheim. So the let's read the Brisa, because the Brisa continues and it explains itself. It says chatoim, which are shkagas, and have to be similar to pshoim. Ma pshoim she'ein b'nei carbon, af chatoim she'ein b'nei carbon. So just like the pesha, when someone does something on purpose, he doesn't bring a carbon. So the chait that was saying he's getting a kapara from is going to be just for a chait, a shaygig that doesn't have a carbon. My new, so then to continue on the Gemara on Daf Ches, my new yesh b'yediyah b'tchila v'yesh b'yediyah b'sayf. That's someone that has a yediyah b'tchila and a yesh b'yediyah b'sayf. So it's coming to tell you. I'm sorry. What is it? My new yesh b'yediyah. So I'm saying that's what I would have thought that. It's coming to, we're trying to say, but how do you do b'tchila and a yediyah b'sayf? That you bring the carbon oil of the yared, that's not going to get a kapara from the soar b'fnim. It's only prior to bringing the oil of the yared, prior to you having the yediyah b'sayf, that it's taila the einish. So tomorrow, high bar carbon who, but it does have a carbon. It brings the oil of the yared. Meaning I'm sorry, I just keep losing my place. Let me say this again. The Gemara, my new, what is that coming to exclude? So fact the Gemara, high bar carbonu. That we're saying that it's coming to exclude that has anyone that has a carbon, but this does have a carbon. So what do you need to tell you that we had
I thought
said,
I thought it means like it only includes something that does not have a carbon. Right? Rashi says, "Ma psham she'ena b'nei carbon afatam."
Habar carbon oil v'yardhu v'lomli l'meim edeloy nechaper haysor Allah. I mean, I thought that what I'm getting confused about. We're saying the way we know that it's not mechaper is because it says mipshem l'chol chatoison. I
Right.
thought that's the source for that. What we were saying that something that has a carbon is not. It's not going to be a mechaper on. Right? That's what l'chol chatoison. Okay, I guess that's the Gemara is really explain. I think the Gemara is just explaining itself of what it means. Mind you, so we're saying it has a carbon. So what do you need? I think what the kasha is just what do you need a kapara for if it has a carbon? The carbon provides a kapara. So we're talking about where he found out right before Yom Kippur, he found out that he was tamei and he went into the mikdash. So at this point he's mechuyev in oil v'yared, but he doesn't have the opportunity to bring it because there's not enough time. So I might say even though he's a yesh b'yediyah b'tchil v'yesh b'yediyah b'soif, he'll have a kapara in the meantime until the carbon is brought. Kamashmal on that no. Since once he's mechuyev a carbon oil v'yared, he is excused. He's excluded from the kapara of the Sar Nasa B'Fnim. Amar ma minayin sheyesh b'yediyah b'tchila ve'ein b'yediyah b'soif. So that Sar zet toila. How do we know that it's toila? Minayin Michael Kashalet. Minayin Michael Kashalet. What's this question? We explained that it's to provide him with a to be toila his einish. Hori kashle. Hasha da amet chatoyim dumi de pshoyim ma pshoyim de labnei carbon af chatoyim nami de labnei carbon. Now that we've come to explain, we excluded yesh b'yediyah b'tchila v'yesh b'yediyah b'sayf because it has a carbon. Why don't we say that it's not even toila? Because in the end there's a carbon until prior to the yediyah there's no carbon. When he has the yediyah, he will have a carbon. So this is a mistake. His shaygig is something that has a carbon for it. The Gemara, Im Lapsham de Lavne carbon la oilam, Afkatam de Lavne carbon, ne carbon la oilam.
Part of the question.
V'yesh b'yediyah b'sayf. Aval yesh b'yediyah b'tchila v'ein b'yediyah b'sayf. Kivin d'chim misyadalei ba'kabanu emeloi litli. That's the Gemara's kasha. Let's say since he's going to eventually have a carbon, he shouldn't get a kapara, a provisionary kapara. V'chitema ein b'yediyah b'tchila v'yesh b'yediyah b'sayf. Sar nasa b'chutz v'yem ha'kurim. Yeah. Zok the Gemara. V'chitema. And if you'll say, ein b'yediyah b'tchila v'yesh b'yediyah b'sayf. Sar nasa b'chutz v'yem ha'kurim mechaper. So that. Okay, so that was our teretz. That's why we need the pasuk, right? Yeah, maybe it shouldn't. And if you'll say. You'll say that if you were going to, we couldn't have thought that the soyer that a yesh b'yediyah betchila the ein b'yediyah b'sayf maybe that should be excluded because it has a carbon. And if you'll say that this already, we already know that the Sar Nasa B'chutz is Mechaper for Ein Bo Yediyah B'tchila and it has a Yediyah B'sayf. So there's no way for the Sar Hanasa B'fnim to be we already know that the Sar Hanasa B'chutz is Mechaper for Ein Bo Yediyah B'tchila. And what else is the Sar Hanasa B'fnim going to be Mechaper on? So the Gemara says no. Maybe you should say the other way around. Maybe the Sar Hanasa B'fnim is Mechaper for Ein Bo Yediyah B'tchila, and the Sar Hanasa B'chutz is going to be Mechaper for the one that for Yesh B'Yediyah and Ein B'Yediyah B'sayf. That's what's Amar Kol L'chol Chatasam Mechlal D'Bnei Chatois Ninu. It has to be something that is going to eventually be a carbon chatas, meaning the chatas over here in this context is referring to the oil of Yared. So that's how we know it's referring to the Yesh B'Yediyah B'tchila V'Ein B'Yediyah B'sayf. So that's the Gemara. Amar Kra L'chol Chatosim Mechlal D'Bnei Chatosim Ischaper Kapar Gum. Yeah, Frektim Marvin is Kaper Kapar Gemura. Let's say that if we're saying that Yesh B'Yediyah B'tchila V'Ein B'Yediyah B'sayf, the Sar Nasa B'fnim is Mechaper. Let's say it's Mechaper and it does a full job. That even after he's going to someday find out about it, he doesn't have to bring a carbon oil of Yared. As long as there was a Yom Kippur in between, he doesn't bring a carbon oil of Yared. The oil of Yared is only if he finds out about it before Yom Kippur. So if it had said from his chatois, then you'd be right. It says to his chatois, it's only those that will come eventually to a chatas. So if you're going to say that it's not going to get a chatas in the end, then that would not the pasuk would not be referring to it. Dr. Gemara, if he's going to have to eventually bring a carbon oil of Yared, why is the Torah telling you that? Why are we having this carbon Sarah Hanasa B'fnim be mechaper on it if it's going to end up anyway? It's going to bring the carbon. Amar Zera Loimish in Mace B'Loi Oven. It's going to tell you if he dies before Yom Kippur, he doesn't get punished. Amalei Rava and Mace Misa Marakas. Misa is the ultimate purifier. Someone who is mace, he's not going to get punished. That's his kapara. It's to protect him from Yisurim until such time as Yom Kippur comes. In the meantime, he's not going to get Yisurim. We said in the Mishnah that if the Sar Hanasa B'chutz is mechaper for where there was no Yediyah in the beginning, where he's never going to bring a carbon oil of Yared, and then it says, we said in the Brisa, I'm sorry, the Mishnah, it's not a Brisa, this is from our Mishnah. We said in our Mishnah that this comes from the fact that when we compare that just like the Sar Hanasa B'fnim is mechaper on something that has a Yediyah, this also is going to be mechaper on something that has a Yediyah. What's something? This is something that didn't have a Yediyah B'tchila, but it has a Yediyah B'sayf. So the Gemara Michti Iskusi Iskis Lahadadi V'nechaper Pnimi Madidei V'adachitzin. Once you're saying there's a hekesh, let's say the carbon Pnimi is going to mechaper, not just since we're saying it's going to mechaper on something else, mechaper things that have a Yediyah. Let's say that the Pnimi is also mechaper where there's no Yediyah B'tchila and a Yediyah B'sayf. In a case where he ends up not doing, so the Gemara says, what's the point of having two karbanos that are both being mechaper on the same thing? why are you saying that it should also that the pnimi should also be mechaber on the chitzon? If something happened in between, the kohen gadol died, they lost the animal, there was no animals left, and they never brought the sar hachitzon. Amakra achas kapara achas mechaper bein mechaper shtei kaparas. Any individual thing is only mechaper. Any carbon is only going to be mechaper on one thing, not on two separate shkagas.
Meaning that it's not the first reason that we gave because of that scenario where there wasn't a chitzon. It's a pasuk itself.
No, the scenario where there wasn't a chitzon was not a reason. That was the explanation of why it's relevant. We're saying that the case where it would be a difference would be there's no chitzon. The Gemara is saying no, that can't be. It's not true because you can only bring each carbon can only be mechaper on one thing. In fact, the chitzon adidei ba'amai the ovid pnimi. Okay, we said it says achas legabe the pnimi. So that means it can only be mechaper on one thing, but it doesn't say that by the chitzon. So the sar hachitzon, let's say that should also be mechaper on yesh b'yediyah b'tchila ve'en b'yediyah b'sayif. Nafkamina l'tuma de'ira bein zelazeh, and the nafkamina would be if it became tameh after the I think the chitzon went first. So after the chitzon he became tameh. So then the pnimi would still be able to be mitar. Amar kra achas b'shana kapara zu loytehei says also on that achas b'shana el achas b'shana only once a year that it's only going to be one chance at getting a kapara for what the pnimi is mechaper. So if you miss that, you're going to have to wait till next year, and it can't be that the chitzon is also mechaper on it. So Rabbi Shimon the Amar, by a carbon who Rabbi Shmuel, argues on our Mishnah. He holds that yesh b'yediyah b'sayf, but there's no yediyah b'tchila. We said is precluded from the oil of v'yared. He disagrees. He says no, you can't bring an oil of v'yared on it. Sar nasa b'chutz amay mechaper. What is the sar nasa b'chutz being mechaper on? That means he holds that this is something that has a carbon, so it can't be the sar can't be mechaper on it. So what is going to be mechaper? So it's talking about it's going to move down to the next stage, the one that's the third thing that we said in the Mishnah, where there's no yediyah either before or afterwards. In fact, the Gemara Haisira Galam Haisira Shchadashim mechaper. Savlekar Meir, he holds like a Meir from our Mishnah. But Meir in our Mishnah had said that it was one big basket, and all of the different karbanos that we mentioned in the Mishnah are mechaper on all of them. So now the Gemara asks, if that's the case, why do we need the hekesh that we said between the chitzon and the pnimi, which we had used to say that the carbon, the sar b'chutz, is coming to mechaper on ein ba yediyah b'tchila, because we said just like the pnimi is going to be mechaper on something that has yediyah, there's also on something that has a pnimi. But what is it coming to hamakish for? Ma pnimi ein mechaper b'shar averis, af chitzon ein mechaper b'shar averis. It's coming to tell you that it's only mechaper on this, but not on anything else. Okay, we'll stop over here. Have a good Shabbos, and Bez Hashem.
Thank you.
We'll see you on Shabbos.